Welcome to the Leadership Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Jonno White. I'm the founder and principal consultant of Clarity. We are an Australian-based consultancy that works with leaders around the world, and our passion is to invest in people to become everything they're meant to be in order to fill the world with healthy organizations that people love to work for and customers line up to buy from. The goal of this podcast is to invest in you and your leadership. If you're just joining us for the first time, then feel free to check out consultclarity.org. That's our website, consultclarity.org. We have so many free resources on there, the most popular being our 7 Questions on Leadership series. We've had more than 1,500 leaders from around the world in all different sectors give their in-depth answers on leadership, what books they love, what they found most challenging, the most meaningful stories, how they structure their time through the day. That's free, so go and check it out. And we'd love to interview you about your leadership. I believe you have advice from your experience, your context, and your life so far that is important and can help other leaders. It's also a great way to give back. It's free to get involved, and you can do so by going to consultclarity.org/7-questions-interest, or just Google consultclarity.org 7 questions interest and fill out the form that pops up. We have a free resource for you on our website. It's called Leadership Survival Guide. It's a 57-page ebook. It has interviews with 10 world-class leaders, and you can go to consultclarity.org. It's right at the top, and get that today. We also have a daily email that we send out to over 15,000 leaders, and that email contains the highlights, our best content from our podcasts, our blog, my book, the books that we're loving that are out there about leadership. It's also the best way to get access to our masterclasses and workshops before anyone else. And there's also exclusive and limited special options just for subscribers. And you can subscribe by going to consultclarity.org/subscribe. Now, my gift to you is to work incredibly hard to provide the best leadership content I can to invest in you and your leadership. So if you're finding our content helpful, if you find this podcast helpful, then your gift to me could be this. If you do find it helpful, then write a review or rate our content and make sure you subscribe or follow. I can't emphasize enough how helpful that is. It really does help us to get the word out there so we can invest in more leaders to become everything they're meant to be. It also means a lot to me personally when people like you and people in our community share our content on social media. So if you do that, then please do look for me, Jonno White, to tag me, and look to tag Clarity on whatever platform you're on. And our team, including me, I'm always looking to see when people have mentioned us so that I can engage with you. And also we look at sharing content. So if you write something about something we've done, there's also a good chance we'll share that with our followers. So if you could do that, that is a massive, massive help as we try to invest in as many leaders as we can around the world. Last of all, you can check out my book about how to deal with difficult people even if you hate conflict. It's called Step Up or Step Out. It's available on Amazon. You can just look up Step Up or Step Out Jonno White, or you can go to store.consultclarity.org/book and check it out there. I have coached leader after leader after leader, and in more than 50% of the sessions, this topic comes up. How do I deal with this person? I'm finding it really difficult, and I just want to find a way that doesn't blow up to just to have a difficult conversation, to lead them better. How do I do that? There's a 3-step process that I outline in this book that I believe can help you. Okay, let's get into today's episode of the Leadership Conversations podcast. Enjoy. Welcome to another episode of the Leadership Conversations podcast. Today's guest is Nikki Clarke. Nikki is founder and host of the Nikki Clarke Show, and I'm really excited to chat with Nikki about all things leadership, about her show, and welcome to the podcast, Nikki.
Thank you so much, Jonno. It's really a pleasure and an honor. Thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, I'm really excited about our conversation. First of all, can you tell our listeners a bit about you, who you are, and what you do?
Absolutely. I'd be delighted to share a little bit about my journey. And I have to say that it's been, a journey of valleys and the mountaintop, just really enjoying the process. Every moment has been what I call a blessing. It's a blessing and a lesson. And my journey started in Jamaica, where I was born. And at the age of 3, my parents made the move to Montreal, Quebec, in Canada, where they were invited as West Indians to come and start a new life. And the port of entry for West Indian immigration was Montreal, Quebec. So that's where they ended up settling. And as a preschooler, we ended up living in a all white, all French Canadian neighborhood. So we were the
Wow.
only Black English Caribbean family.
Oh, it's
And
incredible.
Jonno, I'm not sure if you can imagine the adjustments we made.
Yeah.
We had to acclimatize not only to colder weather. When we arrived, it was like the dead of winter. So it was my first experience with snow all around me. I was kind of dumbfounded, seeing all the snowflakes everywhere. But later on, it became one where I had to adjust to learning a different language at a young age, learning French, and then having to adapt to a new culture and also having to deal with confrontational racism.
Mm,
So these were very, interesting yet formative experiences for me, where I had to learn to be adaptable, flexible, and also to be very strong at a very young age, dealing with these experiences. And I really have to give, a big, I guess, appreciation for my parents who they showed me how to just forge through all that I was experiencing in the very early years, and to not have me break, so to speak, by all these kind of negative experiences around me. So they taught me to appreciate who I was. There was a lot of affirmation about being a smart and beautiful little girl, and that whatever came my way, I'd be able to handle it. And they also showed me that to have a spirit of excellence, I would be able to
mm,
um, push my way through any type of circumstance and to be respected once I reach that achievement. So with these early lessons, that's what I learned, and I used them to as my weapons, so to speak, to fight back. Success was my revenge. So I worked very hard in school. I excelled in school. I had no choice. My mother was a school teacher, and I just did very well. And that was the way for me to get my, I guess, street creds or my respect by being the best in the classroom. Being that I was the only Black girl in most circumstances,
mm.
that's what I did to overcome. And then later on, we moved out into a neighborhood that was a little bit more diverse, and I had different types of neighbors and different types of friendships, which I really loved. I loved um, I loved growing up in Montreal for the diversity later on in the years, and that was a really great experience. And then around in the by the time I was in university, I had met my ex husband, and yeah, then it became a whirlwind romance, and we fell in love. I got married, and we moved to Ontario, which is the province beside Quebec, and started a family. And I was studying when I met him film and communications, because I was determined to become Canada's Oprah Winfrey. In fact, that year was the year 1987, when I was in university at
Yeah.
McGill. That was the year that I had first glimpsed Oprah on TV,
Oh, wow.
and the way she had, demonstrated so much wisdom and her grace and her beauty. I said,
Mm,
yes, I can identify with this amazing woman, and this is what I want to be. I just knew I connected with her right away. So that was my dream, and I went through the process of getting um, my programs done at the university. And after I was done, I met my ex-husband, and yeah, then the chapter changed. I ended up, staying at home and raising three beautiful children. And then my marriage ended when my last son was about 15 months old,
oh,
and I
wow.
ended up walking away from the marriage, and um, yeah, taking another pivot in my life,
Mm,
and made a decision that I was going to make it, no matter what, being an independent woman and raising my three children the best way that I knew how.
wow.
So I I was very fortunate to connect with some, what I call destiny helpers. They were there for me, and they came at a really opportune time to offer me a position because of my education, my degree. I got a job teaching part time in a college, so I was able to, support my family, and also to, create a network of people who were educators. And I was actually um, a faculty member in the a college in Ontario for early childhood education. So I was actually teaching teachers, teachers who would go out and provide a wonderful foundation for children 0 to 6. So that
Wow.
was my career, that was my passion, and that's what I did. I worked and I took care of my children, but I didn't really have anything, any other outlet. It was
Mm,
just that kind of routine. And then around 2008, something happened. I was, I love to volunteer. Actually, that was something that what my parents instilled in me at a very early age, was to, service before self is what I
mm,
heard growing up.
mhm.
And they voluntold me to do certain things in church, or in other community events, always to lend a helping hand. So with that kind of um, early kind of, you know in um, putting those values in you at a very early age, it stuck with me. And while I was teaching, I was doing things in the community to help support other educators. I was also involved in other community events for the Black community in Ontario, and it was something that was fulfilling. And someone heard about what I was doing, and they invited me to come on their online radio show to talk about some of the supports that I had provided for the community. And I said,
Mm,
yeah, sure, that sounds like a great idea. I really appreciate it. And when I had interviewed with the person, the station owner actually heard the delivery, and called me after the interview and said, you know what, I think you'd be a dynamic host. Would you like to have your own show? And I thought,
no
wow,
way.
what do I say? Yes, without any hesitation, not really
Wow.
knowing what exactly I was doing, but I just knew that I had to take that leap of faith, and that door was open for a reason. And then I heard a whisper that what I was doing was good and it was rewarding, but it wasn't really the plan. And the
Mm,
whisper reminded me what the plan was and what my first passion was, and that was to be a host, and to be, calling people from all walks of life to come and share their heart
yeah,
stories, very similar, following the model of Oprah. So
yeah, yeah.
fast forward, I took that opportunity and started an online show in 2008 called And the Beat Goes On. I invited most particularly musicians to come on and perform live.
Yeah.
And one of my first guests was, his name was Abel back then, but I think internationally people would know him as The Weekend. He came on the show
Really?
and he showed his chops, and everyone was blown away by his ability to freestyle. I mean, you can give him a topic and he can write the melody. He can come up with the lyrics and just blow everyone's
Wow.
mind. So he was, he was just a force to reckon with, and that's why he is such an incredible talent. And it just grew. I had people from Death Row Records, Tupac's people heard about me. I was like this underground kind of, online personality helping to support artists, and they reached out to me and asked me if their artists could come on the show, and I said, well, absolutely. I was just so honored to be connected with the type of stellar
Yeah.
talent that had come out of that. So it just grew, and after about 3 years, and the reach, the influence that it had. I mean, people were contacting me from Asia, from the United States, from different places in the Caribbean. I said, okay, well, this can be something I can do full time. I feel confident now that
Wow.
this is something that I want to do, and I gave up my safe, my secure position, my corporate job, and I'm pretty sure people thought I was crazy because of going from that to going into something without a safety net. But I just knew that I had to try,
Mm.
and that's what I did. And Jonno, it was quite a journey. I made mistakes, and then I made some incredible, you know, incredible achievements, not knowing that I could do it, only knowing that I didn't have the fear to stop me from trying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love that.
And I met some wonderful people who supported me, and then I met some people who didn't have the best intentions, but I learned from that situation too,
Yeah.
and I got better throughout the years. So the name of the show changed to the Nikki Clarke Show because someone told me to not hide behind the name,
Yeah.
and to put myself out there, make myself vulnerable. If I'm going to ask people to come on the show and to ask them to, you know, remove their masks, so to
Mm.
speak, and to show
Hmm.
their authentic selves, then I had to do the same. So I had a lot of growing to do in those years as I still continue to grow. And well, what it did, it attracted a tribe. The vibe attracted a tribe of people who just loved the platform. They felt safe. They weren't being judged, and
Mm.
that was their time to shine. In the 15 minutes of unpacking some really hard stuff, some of them. I mean, I had people who were rape survivors, some people who had gone
Mm.
through some incredible tragedy, survivors of some terminal, not terminal because they were still there, but like cancer,
Yeah.
like some really hard stuff. But they had the courage to share it, and it was like a cathartic release, because as they released the story, not only did they heal, but the people who were listening felt, you know
Mm.
what, I'm not alone. So with that single experience, they felt that they were in a community that could help them, and they were being healed in that process. So this is what has happened, Jono. That leap of faith that I took in 2008 has grown into a community now in 2022. And I'm glad I listened to that, what I call a divine whisper, because 15 awards later for the show,
Wow.
and the reach of people that I've made from online to now, not only doing online, but now I'm on 5 cable channels across Canada, and I also have a radio show out of the United States. I really truly feel that God's hand is on this, and I'm able to do what I want to do in terms of helping people and people helping themselves.
Well, you're clearly doing what you're meant to be doing, and I love stories for that reason. And your story is yet another story for me. I don't know if it's the same for you when you're chatting with your guests, but one thing that really stands out for me is how every story just about is not linear. You know, everyone has this sense
Yeah.
of passion. And then when you tell it, though, it's all clear in hindsight, but it's very much pivot here, pivot there. Wow, I didn't think I was going to be doing that. This opportunity came, and then you end up doing what you're doing. And um,
Yes.
that's definitely true of your story.
Yes. Yes. Pivot is a very operative word, and patience and perseverance.
Yeah,
You
well
know,
said.
there were times where I'd say to myself, like, why did I sign up for this? Because it was challenging.
Mm,
And the challenge was, maybe dealing with some opposition, or dealing with funding, because in order to branch out, in order to extend, you have to have some, um, the financial stability.
yeah.
And it I had to teach myself, and I had to ask for help, which in the early years it was difficult for me to do. So I had to really humble
Mm,
myself, and to say, I can't do it alone, and reaching out for team members that could get us to the destination we want it to be. So I
mm.
don't have a huge team, Jonno. I like to keep my team small, but I know that they're rock solid. They're reliable. We share a common goal. We share the same
Mm,
vision, and I know that I'm supported, and I don't have to worry, about what's happening when I'm not around, and that's very important to me. It's always quality over quantity when it comes to working with uh, team. I mean,
yeah.
it can grow, and I'm sure it will, but for now I'm happy with a smaller team, and we're able to pursue the same vision, and really honing on this spirit of excellence in terms of our video production, and how we want to really affect positive change in the community.
Yeah, fantastic. I love your mission, and I love your approach to the team, and I love chatting with entrepreneurs, and which you definitely are, and I love chatting with leaders, which you are. And like you said, it's funny. I tend to think that leading a large organization, leading a mid-sized organization, and leading a small team actually have a lot in common. There are differences, but one
Hmm.
the key thing, and this is the first thing I do with any leader of a large organization, is work with them on their team, on their executive team. And it's funny how
Mm.
some of the things you just mentioned are the keys that if leaders want to reshape an organization with 2,000 people, they probably, the dot points you just mentioned about your team is probably a good place to start, because it's that inner circle, it's that first group of people. And you hit the nail on the head when you said, I want to be able to go away and not worry about, just know that these people have my back, I've got their back, we're in this together,
Hmm.
we're chasing after a mission, we're on the same page, we have a spirit of excellence.
Yes.
um, so I actually think they're great. It might be a small team, but you just unpacked some great leadership principles for any leader, no matter the size of the team they're leading.
Yes. We're small, but we're mighty.
I want to ask you about your childhood, and I can't think of like so many variables. You went through changing country, changing language, and going from and then being the only
Hmm.
English speaking, and then the issue of race. And
Uh-huh.
as you mentioned, it's just horrible and heartbreaking to hear um, the race, about you experiencing racism in that environment. Which
Hmm.
to be honest, I don't. I try to understand, but I, particularly hearing about all those things, I can't even comprehend what that was like for a young person to move. And I think your parents sound like incredible people. What did you, firstly, I was thinking when you were describing that, what was most challenging when you look back and you had all of that going on? What did you find most challenging as a young person with all of those different changes in your life?
I think what I was challenged was understanding the root of racism,
Hmm.
and I think if I can give an illustration, it will kind of show where my thinking was, and where
Hmm.
I'm still kind of struggling to understand where does it come from, and why
Yeah.
does it still persist in our societies. But I remember this one time where on Saturdays it was very typical for my parents to take me grocery shopping. So when we had finished our shopping run, my father parked the car right outside of our triplex. We were on the top level of a triplex in Montreal, and as I was coming out of my father's green Pinto, out of nowhere, and I was 4 years old, um, this little girl, and she couldn't have been more than maybe, I would say, 8. She was just maybe a few inches taller than me. Started to started to hit me. Started to punch. Um, and was calling me the N word.
Oh my.
And my father, you know, quickly ran up to her, and she fled. And my mother picked me up, and she
Mm.
was very visibly upset. But I wasn't feeling any of her blows. I was more in shock than anything.
Yeah.
And I was more concerned about my parents' reactions. My father was he was furious.
Mm.
And the little girl ended up being the the niece of our landlord. She had come to visit, and the landlord was mortified because she loved us, you
Yeah.
know. And she was so embarrassed, and she was so apologetic, but she had to deal with the fact that, that's her family, and that's
Yeah.
what the family had raised their children to understand, whatever limitation they understood of black people, it wasn't good.
No.
So she had to reflect on whatever that was. Through our experience, she was very good to us, but I can't imagine the conversation they had that day at their dinner table. But it was one where, when I was in the apartment with my mother, who was sobbing, and trying to console me, I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't crying. I was just kind of dumbfounded. My father came after speaking to the landlord and the little girl, and that was the first time I saw my father visibly upset. Yeah, I saw a tear
Yeah.
come down his eye, and he's a very stoic man.
Yes.
And I said to him, "Are you okay, Daddy?" Because I was, like I said, very concerned about the way they were handling it. The innocence of a child. They're not, they're see things in a different lens. All I could ask him was, "Why did the girl hate me? I don't understand. What
Mm.
did I do?"
Mm.
Because all I'm hearing from my parents is that I'm their sunshine, and I'm beautiful, and I'm smart, and
Yeah.
I'm getting the affirmation that a child should, but I there's a very different reflection from someone who doesn't even know me,
Mm.
physically striking me and calling me very bad names. So that's when my father had to, very emotionally explain to me that these good things, of who I was, the talent, the intelligence, the beauty, that was always going to be with me. That will never change. But there will be people along my journey that will not feel the same way. But it doesn't change who I am. And that's when he told me, you have to work harder, you have to be very strong, and you have
Mm.
to excel. You have no choice. And and I just kind of accepted that fate, and I said, okay, well, if that's what it is, then that's what I'm going to do, and that's what I've proceeded to do throughout my life.
Mm.
But what I did too was I internalized this desire that at any point that I could find someone like her, or someone on the verge of turning to be like her, to sit down with them and to teach them, and
Mm.
to show them what is real, what the myth is, and what the reality is, and to approach them with understanding and love, which is not the easiest thing to do,
No.
but is something that I feel that is one of the qualities that I have, that I can impart wisdom and help someone and show them
Mm,
love through just being, patient and not getting to their level of, anger or ignorance, but just being that teacher. So it was later on, with the show, there were opportunities for me to do more in the Black community, and also with
mm,
other communities who were interested in knowing more about, anti-Black racism. And I became involved in what is known as the Ontario Black History Society,
mm,
which is a nonprofit organization that helps to preserve, promote, and protect Black Canadian history.
mm,
And it's funded, through private funders, but also through, the three levels of government. And I volunteered with them for many years, and then I was so honored to be elected as the president in 2015. So that gave me a really amazing opportunity to meet the different leaders in the different levels of government, and also to spread awareness of Black history, as
mm,
well as helping to dispel myths and helping people to identify, racial microaggressions, as well as, just chipping away at
mm,
anti-Black racism and what that looks like and what they can do as leaders in their own organizations or in their own families to combat what that is. So uh, everything led to where I am now. All the dots connected from that moment in the parking lot outside my triplex, to where I am right now, where people are calling on me, from school boards to corporations to, places in government, to speak
yeah.
about that moment in time and what people should know about Black Canadians and Blacks around the world and their achievements, and to celebrate them, especially February. February is Black History Month,
Mm.
and to understand the innovation that they have lended to the world. So that is what I do, and that is the joy that I have in sharing what I've learned and what I continue to learn from people.
Yeah, it's incredible. Thank you for sharing that story, and being so vulnerable to share that. And um, so, if you were, I just really want to ask if you were sitting down with a leader, the listeners who are on the other side of this, who could be from anywhere in the world, and have any experience. Um, they might have a lot of experience in similar setting to yours with dealing with racism and being, um, really being the victim of that, or they may not have. They may be, sort of lucky enough to be in a place where they haven't experienced any racism. But what advice would you give to leaders about how to fight, I guess, particularly anti-Black racism as a leader in 2022?
Um, I think I think when it comes to racism, particularly anti-Black racism, the first part of the fight is self-awareness, and to honestly reflect on your own unconscious biases,
Yeah,
and how you view people, how you conduct yourself around people, how you verbalize things, how all these things have to be processed internally before you can look on the outside. So that would be the first thing.
yeah, that's
And what
good.
I've been what I've done in certain presentations is I've helped people to understand what racist microaggressions are. A
Mm,
microaggression would be something that is said directly, or something that is done directly to harm
yeah,
someone's, esteem, or the way they feel, or to hinder their movement, in terms of a career or whatever they're doing. and it can be done in different ways by what they say, like I said, or it could be a joke. They're different ways, but the main thing is to harm. So
Mm.
once people can see where they're at, uh, that is that is vital. Then the other part is to sit and listen. I think if you are not entirely knowledgeable about certain groups, particularly the Black community, sit with a Black person, sit
Yeah.
with a Black organization, observe, listen, ask
Mm.
questions. You know, and then I would think the third thing is to get involved. If you're really genuine, if you're really sincere
Yeah.
about making the changes, now you have to put it to action because
Mm.
you've done the internal work. You've sat, you observed, you've taught yourself, you've done the lessons. Now put it into practice. And what can you do to make any kind of change? Whether it doesn't matter. It can be very simple, like having a conversation, like going to an event, showing support, or it could be something where you're actively engaged in change by, um, sitting down and implementing change in a policy. But I would think those are the steps to affecting um, great changes in terms of combating anti-Black racism.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. There's great thoughts there, starting with self-awareness. That's and then sitting down and listening is probably one of the top 5 tips for any leader in any setting. But I think in this case, it's a brilliant piece of advice, and might seem very simple, but I think even just having this conversation with you and hearing about your experience, outside your triplex is um, that's taught me something. There's something new that I will walk away from this conversation with, from hearing you tell that story, and it's been very it's been very meaningful hearing you share that. Um, I
Thank
wanted to
you.
ask you about your parents. They just sound like incredible people, and what are there any moments that you reflect on where that come to mind, where you saw them navigate a situation that has really stuck with you and taught you something about leadership, business, entrepreneurship, excellence, perseverance, anything that comes to mind? I just couldn't help but asking because they sound like such amazing people.
Well, thank you, and I do appreciate being able to share a little bit about my family. My parents are incredible people. They're retired now, but my mom was a teacher her whole life, from teaching school age all the way up to university. She taught at McGill University, and my father was a businessman. So yes, I've followed my parents' model in terms of how they conducted themselves in community endeavors, and they showed me excellence in the type of quality work that they provided. My father, particularly, was one of the founders of the Black Business Professional Association. Was actually co-founded in 1975. He, along with I think there were 4 other gentlemen who were of Jamaican origin, decided to put this organization to help support other members who were entrepreneurs in the Black community in
Yeah.
Montreal. And I was the one that he took everywhere. So I went to all kinds of seminars, and I went to the events, and he voluntold me to help in certain community work. And I remember Jonno, when I was 15 years old, he took me to it was a Black History Month event, and the amazing um, Jesse Jackson, Reverend Jesse Jackson, who walked
Yeah.
alongside Martin Luther King as a civil rights activist. He was there to speak to us about his journey. And what he said stayed with me for the rest of my life. He said that there is nothing more powerful than a mind made up. And that's exactly what I have done my whole life. Like, no matter what has come my way, and I've had a lot of, like I said, moments in the valley, and then I've gone up to the mountaintop. Certainly not a linear experience, but each one I've accepted and I've learned from, and I appreciate what happened because it's made me the woman that I am. But I never gave up. And that's the lesson for every entrepreneur, anyone who wants to succeed in business. Don't give up, because the moment you give up, that's when your breakthrough is around the corner.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I love that. Or um, I think a pastor, Bishop T.D. Jakes, puts it as, I think I heard him say it, that it's always darkest before the dawn. It might be Winston Churchill.
Exactly.
Anyway, some comes from somewhere, someone good. I think I heard Bishop T.D. Jakes say that quote anyway, and I do love him. So, um, well, that's been so enriching. I think it would be great down the track to invite you back for another episode, just because, Nikki, I feel like I couldn't help but ask you about some of these things because your story is just such an incredible story. But also, there's so much I could ask you about growing your show and what you've learnt about communication that I know leaders out there would be leaning in, desperate to hear about. So maybe down the track we can potentially do another episode at some
Oh, I'd
point
be
if you'd
so
be
honored.
interested.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, because
Yes, please.
this has been great, but I'm leaving so much on the table because I have 20 questions I could ask, but that's life. So let me jump into Leadership Express and just ask you a few questions as we land today. Are you ready?
Absolutely.
Okay. So firstly, what's a book that you've gifted a lot to other people?
It's the book that I've written called Transforming Lives One Story at a Time. And it's a compilation of stories of success and inspiration.
That's a cracker of a title. That's just beautiful. I love it. Transforming lives one story at a time. Is that right?
Yes, that's right, and that's
Yeah.
that's actually the tagline for my show. So the book was kind of a beautiful expansion of that, and the book is in a collection of 30 co-authors who um, have shown their metamorphosis from caterpillar to trans to butterfly, and what that
Yeah.
looked like in that in the book. So it's a bestseller, and I'm really happy to gift that to anyone. I'd be happy to send you um, the ebook, Jonno, if you'd like
Yeah.
that. I'd be happy
Yeah.
to
Thank
send
you.
that to you. Yeah,
Yes, please. I'd love that, and I
you're
think
welcome.
listeners it'd be great for listeners to get their hands on that. There's nothing more powerful than a story, which is really what you do, and I love that. Any great podcasts you're listening to, and it'd be good for you to mention again your show and where people can tune in, potentially from inside, but also outside of Canada. But also any other podcasts or anything else that you're reading, watching, or listening to at the moment and really enjoying.
Um, well, I love Leadership Conversations with Jonno White. Fantastic podcast.
That's right.
And
Thank
I
you.
have to say that I've been really interested in my Christian walk, and understanding different spiritual gifting that is
Yeah.
endowed upon all of us. I'm really interested in knowing what that is. So I've been paying attention to um, a a YouTube channel called Maddie Nottage Ministries, and learning about what she calls training for reigning, and how to conduct yourself in the kingdom. So that's something that I'm really interested in.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I find myself on that quite a bit. And then I also like to go to John Maxwell and
Yes.
learn more about change, disruptive change, in terms
Mm.
of your approach, personal life and professional life. I was really so fortunate to meet him, and he's a really down to earth, pragmatic man, and very open about sharing his journey of disruptive change. And I really like his approach of servant leadership,
Yes.
because I believe, if people want to lead, the best way to do it is to to get right in there and to show um, how you can do it by just engaging, and that's the way you're going to earn respect, and you're going to earn the love of your team by getting involved, and just staying humble. So that's something that I learned, and something that I continue to do with the people that come in my path in terms of team members.
Yeah, there are a couple of wonderful recommendations. What's a recent leadership lesson that you've learned for the first time or been reminded of?
Don't take yourself too seriously.
Yeah,
Don't take yourself too
that's big.
seriously. Whenever you're feeling, the ego overtaking anything, then you have to switch back to humility, because the ego can be very dangerous once that consumes you. And I've seen
Yeah.
it overtake people, and it's really been the demise of their career.
Mm-hmm.
So when I find myself being offended or insulted by people and things that really should not affect me so much, I realize that it's this ego, and I have to silence it and just go back to my faith and
Mm-hmm.
reconnect with the source, so that I can remain a humble servant leader.
Wonderful. What's a great piece of advice you've received? And you've already mentioned that amazing advice around, that was, let's see if I get it right. There's nothing more powerful than a mind made up. That's one great piece of advice. Another great piece of advice you've heard either in a setting like that where it was someone from the platform or in a one-on-one setting?
Well, this is something that I've learned and I share with youth that I engage with. When they invite me to speak and mentor to them, I always tell them, if you can see it, you can achieve it. Once you have a vision, then it's just for you to find a way to having that vision manifest. So you get the destiny helpers to get you there, or you do the research and do the work to make it happen. But it first starts with a vision.
First starts with a vision. That's great. What about a movie or TV show that really impacted you?
A movie that really impacted me. There's a few. I'm a movie buff. I'm always watching movies. Um, but I think the one that impacted me the most, which was a TV movie, was Roots. The Arthur Haley
Hmm.
autobiography, which was many. I'm really dating myself. That was on, I think, in the late '70s, but
Yeah.
or maybe early '80s. But it was something that helped me in terms of understanding who I was, and to watch the experience, the evolution of a black family
Hmm.
in United States, overcome the transatlantic slave trade, being you know kidnapped from Africa, brought to the United States, and how the family overcame so much to where Arthur Haley is and his family. The legacy of his books, and the wealth of wisdom he's been able to share because of his own journey. That was something that I really enjoyed, and I guess that's probably. I guess it would maybe a tribute to my love of literacy as well, because once you
Mm-hmm.
see the movie, for me, I was like, I always want to read the book to see if it's close to what the book was saying, and sometimes, and more often than not, the book is even more in depth, it's richer. So I was glad
Yeah.
to read the book having seen the movie. And then i like i like I like a lot of World War II movies.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea why I'm so compelled to watch World War II movies, particularly where it comes to the Holocaust.
Yes.
And I have so much compassion, um, and it's just something that draws me when those movies come out. Yeah, I'm a big biopic fan. So anything that is related to real life as adapted, like a true story adaptation movie, I'm going to be watching it. So yeah,
Yeah, that's I agree. Have you it's a bit different, but I think it's World War Two it depicts. Have you seen the series Band of Brothers?
I have. I
Yeah,
have.
that's one of my
Yeah.
favorites of all time. I mentioned that just but yeah, I like you,
Very,
I
very good. Very good.
yeah, just the and I think as well just the team and you don't get a much you don't get much higher stakes than you know that sort of environment where you need to have each other's back and
Hmm.
trust each other
Absolutely.
and
I actually saw something called The Edge of Munich, which was on, I'm not sure if I can mention Netflix, but I did.
yeah, you
That
can. That's fun.
was a couple of weeks ago, and a very good movie as well. So
Okay,
yeah,
well, good.
so
I haven't
that's what
seen
I
that one.
do, and um, yeah, and I
Um,
listen to a lot of music.
yeah.
Um, I'm a singer and a songwriter, and so that's what
Okay.
I do in my
Favorite
spare
artists? You've
time.
got to give just right now any artist that you're really loving.
Favorite artist, I would say I like the old school R&B artists. So I would say Al Green,
Yep.
Aretha Franklin. Um, I like jazz singers like Ella Fitzgerald, and I like people like The Dream. I love The Weeknd. I
Yep.
love Drake. I love Bob Marley. So I have a quite an eclectic kind of interest in music. I love gospel. I also like country. I grew up on Johnny Cash,
Ah, did you really?
um, Celine Dion. It's quite amazing. I yeah.
That's a
So
fantastic group of artists you
my
mentioned. Oh, that's incredible.
quite a playlist. But
That is a playlist and
yeah,
a half. That would be a
I
great
listen to a
playlist.
lot of lo-fi now. I was introduced to lo-fi, like just instrumental music to listen to study. So I found something that I like on YouTube. So I listen to that quite extensively to get my groove on, and to stay focused when I'm writing or when I'm reading something. Yeah.
So that was a great playlist. Some wonderful artists, and you couldn't go wrong. Actually, if I think if you put that on at a party, Nikki, that would be a pretty amazing group of group of artists to
Thank
have on in
you.
one playlist. Yeah, yeah, that's great. Well, thank you for sharing that. I couldn't help but asking when I found out you're a musician, and I do love The
You get people
Weekend.
on the
That
dance
was
floor,
great
that's for
finding
sure.
out about how he was on your show in the early days. That was a real highlight because I love his music. So just to wrap up, where can people find you? I know we've mentioned a couple of things, but just for those who are really itching to let you know that something really spoke to them today, or they want to read your book and listen, can you just let us know again how people can find you online?
Absolutely. And thank you again for this wonderful conversation on leadership. I really do appreciate it. They can go to my website and they can find everything there, NikkiClarkeNetwork.com. So they can find all the interviews from past and present, and also where they can shop. They can buy the book there as well as some other items that they may be interested in. I do have souvenir Nikki Clarke show masks if they're looking for face masks as well. So yes, that's where they can find. Or
Excellent,
I'm on
wonderful.
Facebook, Nikki
Well,
Clarke
I just
Show.
want to
I'm
thank our
on
listeners for
Twitter,
tuning in. Today's
Nikki
been a really
Clarke Show
heartfelt
2020. I'm also on Instagram,
conversation,
Nikki
and
Clarke
Nikki's been
31.
incredibly vulnerable to share, and it's definitely had a big impact on me. And I know there'll be a lot of listeners who are really going to be walking away from this. Yeah, just challenge, but in the best way. And so, don't forget for our listeners, you can also check out my other podcast, the Jonno White Leadership Podcast, where I give you tips on how to build a high performance team and how to cast vision, and leadership question of the day, where I give you a different question every day to put a stone in your shoe as a leader. But I want to finish today by saying a massive thank you to Nikki Clarke for coming on, for, like I said just then, sharing so vulnerably, and just for being willing to use your story and share your story. Particularly, I'm still just coming to terms with the hearing about your childhood and those going through all those changes, and I just can't say how much respect I have for you and your parents navigating that and becoming the people that you are. So, yeah, it's just been a pleasure and a joy. So thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. And Jonno, I appreciate what you do. It's really important in connecting people, all walks of life, internationally, to help with the conversation, the very important conversation of guiding people to authentic leadership. So thank you so much for this.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Leadership Conversations podcast as much as I did. If you're joining us for the first time, don't forget to check out consultclarity.org. That's our website, consultclarity.org. We have so many free resources on there, including our 7 Questions on Leadership series. We've had more than 1,500 leaders from all over the world in all different roles, in different industries, answer these 7 questions on leadership, and leaders give these in-depth answers around how they spend their time, a book that's been significant for them. It's just a gold mine. It's completely free to access, so go to consultclarity.org and look for that. We'd also love to interview you about your leadership. I believe your experience, your life, your context means that you have advice on leadership that other leaders can learn from. Yes, you, if you're going, not me, well, no, I really believe you would have something to add. So if you're looking for a way to give back, it's completely free to get involved. And we would love to interview you through the 7 Questions on Leadership. You just go to consultclarity.org/7-questions-interest, or Google consultclarity.org 7 questions interest and fill out the form and get involved. We have a free resource on our website called the Leadership Survival Guide. It's a 57-page ebook, 10 world-class leaders giving their thoughts on leadership, and that's completely free. It's available on our homepage, consultclarity.org, right at the top, so make sure you go and get that and download it today. And we have a free daily email that you can subscribe to. We send this out to over 15,000 leaders from around the world. And it contains the highlights of content from our podcasts, our blogs, our books we're reading. It's got the best content, and it gives you exclusive, limited, early access to our masterclasses, workshops, new products, special offers. It's all for our subscribers. You can go to consultclarity.org/subscribe and join 15,000 other leaders. And my gift to you is to work really hard, particularly through the Leadership Conversations podcast. I have been blown away by the quality of the leaders, and I'm learning as much as anyone in doing these interviews. So I'm having a great time. And my gift to you is to keep lining up the best leaders I can to invest in your leadership. Your gift to me, if you're finding this helpful, there is something that you could do that would help us out massively. And that is to write a review and to leave a rating for our podcast or wherever you're watching or listening to this. I can't tell you how much that helps us out. Also, subscribe or follow. It really does make a difference in helping us to help more leaders become everything they're meant to be. Another thing that means a lot to me personally is when I see our community share our content. So if you do share this or any other piece of content on social media, then thank you, and please do that. And look for me, Jonno White, or Clarity, and tag us in your post. Our team is always looking for posts to engage with from our community, and there's also a chance that we'll share your content to go beyond and share it with our followers. Last of all, you can check out my book. It's called Step Up or Step Out: How to Deal with Difficult People Even If You Hate Conflict. I wrote this book because 50% of the coaching sessions I have with leaders, this topic comes up again and again and again. And it's this idea of, how do I have this difficult conversation? How do I lead this person better when I'm finding them difficult? Or in some cases, you look and you say, I think I might be leading a difficult person. They're just quite difficult to lead, or I'm finding them quite difficult to lead. So there's a 3-step process that I unpack in Step Up or Step Out. And the amazing thing, and I've literally done this myself, and I've heard it anecdotally from other leaders as I've coached them, is that if you follow this process, you will see that person step up and change their behavior or make a decision, which is to step out some of the time. 95% of the time, people will step up or step out in just 4 weeks. And I stand by that. It's you have to read the book to understand, but I really do believe in it, and I've experienced it firsthand. It works. So you can go to Amazon, look up Step Up or Step Out Jonno White, or store.consultclarity.org/book. Well, thank you so much for listening. We're going to be back with a new episode next time of the Leadership Conversations podcast. And I hope today has helped you to take another step towards becoming the leader you're meant to be. See you next time.